So I'm going to share this dream with you. You know that I've moved.
Right?
Where are you at now? I'm in the great state of Texas. Hopefully I'll be able to come and see you soon if you're still where, oh my goodness, if you're still where I think you are. So,
there you go. Put that face on there.
There we go. What's interesting is I have not dreamed very much since I've been here. All of my California dreams have stopped and desist. It's kind of crazy. And so this was my 5th dream into Texas, and it was on 6/12/2022. And the day before I had a dream, and I think they're 2 in the one. And the dream the day before, I was actually Amy Simple McPherson in the dream, which was crazy. Like, no way. Okay. So I was walking through a neighborhood and looking for something. There was 2 dogs on really long leashes, and I was scared. They were golden labs. I eventually pet them and talked with the owners, and all of a sudden, I was in his house looking at all the catalogs of Costco maps. I asked him if he worked for Costco. He said yes. I said, well, I need one of those maps. He asked which one. I said, I need the DFW map. Then all of a sudden, there was a group of us women who were preachers, and there was one powerhouse preacher named Joyce, but it was actually Catherine Kuhlman. And we were walking through the house, and as we went from room to room, all the furniture was disappearing, and I was wondering what was going on. I said something to everyone about Joyce, Catherine Kuhlman, being hungry, and that we need to feed her. Then we were in a room, and it was someone's birthday, and someone that I worked with in another ministry in California with the homeless was decorating, and all of a sudden we had noodles for Joyce, Catherine Kuhlman, to eat in dream.
Interesting. What do you got, Neil?
Sounds like Joyce needed to be rejoiced. Noodles to eat. So she was strengthened by your noodles. Okay, so you're walking through a neighborhood, and you see 2 dogs on long leashes, and you're scared. But there's a man who's holding them, and somehow you end up in his house, and he's got a bunch of Costco maps on the wall, and you need the one for DFW.
Right, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is where God, through dreams, called me to. Yeah.
And so are the group of women in this house, or is this another scene?
No, they're all in the house.
Okay, so this takes place in the house after this. Once you go in the house, that's the last place you're at, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a group of women preachers and Joyce, who's really Catherine Kuhlman. And as you walk through the house, are you like prayer walking through the house, or just wandering?
I don't remember. That would be in my nature, but I don't remember.
As you do, furniture starts disappearing. And you get to a point where Joyce is getting kind of hangry and needs some food, right? So you need to feed her. And what was the decorating part? There's somebody who's decorating, who's cooking noodles also?
Yes, her name was Vanessa, or is Vanessa, and it's with a ministry that I preached with homeless and women coming out of domestic violence and human trafficking and alcohol and drug addiction. And that's the ministry, and she's the assistant to that ministry, and she's just decorating for the birthday.
Oh, that's right. It was whose birthday was it? Joyce's?
No, I don't know whose birthday it was.
Okay.
It's John's birthday.
It is John's birthday. Or was close enough. So the thought of walking through a neighborhood that's yours, right? This is your neighborhood that you're walking through?
I'm assuming so. I mean, it's a neighbor, so I'm assuming it's my neighborhood.
So you're walking through a place of familiarity, you're wandering around, but you ended up in somebody else's house. The 2 dogs on long leashes, what you said they were Goldens or
golden retrievers?
Golden retrievers.
Yes, or golden labs. Is there a difference between those kind of dogs? I'm actually very scared of dogs, so.
So these dogs retrieved
golden
you.
Labs. They're golden labs. Sorry. Is that such of a thing?
Isn't it a Labrador retriever?
I just put Golden Lab. I don't know the difference.
Okay.
Golden Lab, yeah.
So these dogs brought you, basically you followed the dogs into the house with the man. So
I guess so,
the man is, so you're in somebody else's dwelling. That's not your normal house. But he works at this place that has it's a warehouse full of food and just a massive, it's almost like a warehouse. And he has a map that goes around. Is it a map to it, or once you're inside, where all the stuff is?
It says if I was in his house. It's very interesting because as we're talking and walking through this, I'm going, oh, I think I know the interpretation. It was a regular house, but I knew the maps were from Costco.
Right.
Um,
So were the
and
maps inside of Costco, or how to get to it?
no, there's just maps inside of his house. I just happened to know they were from Costco.
Oh, okay. Now I understand. So Costco maps. So this warehouse is giving you a map of Dallas-Fort Worth. So you've now got a map of Dallas-Fort Worth. Nothing to do with Costco other than it was brought home from there. So it's and now you're with the group of women preachers who are familiar to you. It's a conglomeration of people that you've worked with before, but having Catherine Kuhlman there, who is probably one of the most amazing women of that time, is with you. And the furniture disappearing, I'm stuck at this point. John,
Well, what's interesting is the day before, it is kind of a similar dream, but in the dream, I'm Amy Semple McPherson, who is the starter of the Foursquare Church. But Joyce Myers, I guess you could say Joyce Myers is in the dream, but I kept saying, well, it's not Joyce Myers, it's Catherine Kuhlman. But I don't really know much about her.
So it's the idea of powerful women. Like these are like the historically most powerful women in American history as far as it relates to ministry, evangelism, outreach. Amy Semple McPherson literally fed the city of Los Angeles during the Great Depression. She would literally leave her back door open and people could come and eat there. I've been through her house multiple times near Echo Park in LA and been to conferences, at the Angeles Temple that she built there and everything. And I've had multiple dreams actually about Amy Semple McPherson. So the idea of the idea of Amy Semple McPherson, you being Amy Semple McPherson, right?
Yes.
The idea of a mantle. It's really interesting because I've actually held the mantle, the physical mantle of what she would wear when she would go out to church. It's this thing that you drape over the top of your shoulders and all of that. And I've held the physical mantle of Amy Semple McPherson. It's incredible. But you can just kind of feel the weight of the history of how God does stuff. She was a single mom, hopped in her station wagon, drove across the country with no money, and just had this dream to build this huge place and the first radio station and all of this stuff. And people thought she was nuts, and she would just raise whatever money she would raise and put it into the dream and ultimately build it. And it still exists today. And it's just an incredible testimony to what God did. Catherine Kuhlman too. Both of these women, they weren't perfect women, but they were people that God used in a very, very powerful way, both in a time that it was very even more unpopular, let's say, than it is now for women to be the heads of major ministries or denominations. And so Joyce is another one, she's another person. So the idea that you are Amy in one setting, and there was this lady named Joyce who was really Catherine in another setting, right?
Yes.
It's the idea of being numbered amongst a group of women at that level. I would really pray about the identity and destiny that God has for you, because if you're going to be measured among women, that they've written books and made movies about these women, then that's a pretty hefty ministry call on your life, And so,
well, you know, Mark and I really, well, he's called to politics, and I always say when you get involved in politics, human trafficking is what we will fight. Yeah.
well, and I think the idea of somebody being of notoriety at such a level as like a Mother Teresa, but fighting human trafficking in America could be absolutely huge. It's not going to be exactly what their ministry was, but it's the idea of entering into a level of greatness and even notoriety, the good and the bad that comes with that, of being called on a high level to really affect change and to bring the kingdom of God to the earth in a particular time when it may not be popular, and certainly not that it's ever been popular, unfortunately, because of idiots, for women to lead. But all of those people are considered controversial, and they shouldn't be. But all of them had flaws, and all of them had things that surrounded them, whether it was divorce or relationships or, you know, the disappearance of Amy Semple McPherson. There's a whole story about that. But they were incredibly, incredibly used by God, and nobody can deny the legacy that those great women have had. And to be numbered among them, I think, is a very serious calling. It's a weighty calling, but it's also sobering. But it's also very encouraging that your
And
life,
humbling. That's for sure.
yeah. So
Wow.
actual intelligence, as I would study their lives, particularly Amy Semple McPherson, since you were her in the dream, I would start with her. You can still find videos of her and Catherine Coleman on places like YouTube, some of their radio addresses, whatever. Catherine Coleman has actual videos on YouTube. I would just listen to the voices of past generations of women that he's used in great and powerful ways, and see how God speaks to you, and see how he moves your heart, and see what he does. And don't be afraid to take ridiculous amounts of action that everybody would call you a fool and an idiot for, but you know it's something that's on the heart of God to move in this generation.
Wow. John, you know I'm not afraid of nothing except for dogs. What's really interesting is as you're talking, Neil, I found a little itty bitty church. There's like 20 people in this church because I didn't want to go back into serving and being on staff in a mega church. I just didn't want to go back to the mega church. And there's the patriarch of this church who basically has walked along in the ministry of someone named R.W. Shambach, and he's still preaching today. And I've heard the name R.W. Shambach, but I really don't know who he is. And then I kind of looked a little bit into him, and that really excited me. I'm going, what? I could be going to the same church of this guy's mantle? This is pretty cool. But I just connected the two dreams with the fact that, and what's so hilarious about all this is I was witnessing to a young gal that I was working with in California, and I told her I was going to move to the Dallas area. She goes, you should really try my mother-in-law's church. And I said, why don't you tell me the name of it? She goes, I don't know. And she never told me what it was. And here I come to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm having dinner at this house, and we find out that the house that I was having dinner at was the girl's mother-in-law in California.
Oh,
and then there's more people in this little itty bitty 20-person church that we've all been, everywhere I've been in ministry at, they've gone to church. It was pretty amazing. My mind is blown. I'm going to have to go back and really listen to what you said, John. And some of the things that Neil was walking through. Because, I mean, look at how amazing God is. A year and a half ago, when I found you, John, and we had some conversations and political stuff, and you're moving, and remember my daughter's dream of Dallas. And I'm like, okay, that's the last place I want to go. And here we are. God said, leave Ur. And it all started with dreams. So I just want to tell people out there, don't discount your dreams. They come to pass if you just just seek him and let him just lead and guide you. It's amazing. I'm so thankful.
Amen.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Well, we're so glad you're a part of our family, Val. It was your family in person when you came down to Waco, and yeah, love to see you guys soon. I'm glad. Welcome to Texas.
Thank you. It's been great. I only have one complaint about Texans.
It's hot.
No, I don't mind the heat. Texans don't know how to drive.
Oh.
I'm from
that.
everything's speed racer here.
Yeah. I like New York drivers the best.
Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate it.
You don't need a rear view mirror in New York.
Yeah. Well, when you're walking, you do. That's for sure. As he's talking about that, I'm like, oh, yes, it's so scary to be there. So, well, hopefully, John, we can connect offline. And another thing is my husband's still in California. So there's your little controversy. We are spending the next year and a half commuting back and forth to each other. Wow. But he felt very strongly about what the Lord was saying. And I still believe that it's going to lead him into politics. So who knows?
Yeah.
Well, he's already kind of in politics, but anyway, I told you about that. So
yeah,
I'm so grateful for you all.
Yeah, we love you, Val. Thanks for being on.